Hello, everyone, and thanks for joining us again at Smart Money Results. We have a very special guest for you all, a man who truly needs no introduction. He's David Morgan, founder of themorganreport.com, and author of multiple best-selling books, including Get the Skinny on Silver Investing. As a macroeconomist, Mr. Morgan has been making accurate calls on the silver market long before it was trendy to do so. If you ever bought precious metals, you probably did so because of him. Mr. Morgan, thank you so much for sharing your time with us at Smart Money Results.
Well, thank you for having me, and thanks for the introduction. There's probably some people that bought without reading everything that I have to offer, like the 10 Rules of Silver Investing, that suggests strongly that 10% of your portfolio in the metals is probably enough, 20% maximum. It didn't catch that part and overloaded, so I've got my distractors as well. But no, I was one of the earliest on. I think Ted Butler and I were the first two on the internet to talk about the value of silver investing at that time, which was
absolutely
really, I hate to use the overused expression no-brainer, but it was. And of course, there was a great run in both the metals for a number of years. And of course, now what we're going to discuss is that we have been languishing for years, basically 6 or so in the metals, but it looks like we have some good news ahead of us.
Yeah, that's a perfect segue into my first question, which involves silver's pricing dynamics relative to current broader economic headwinds. Currently, we have an inverted yield curve, poor relations with key economic partners, and a Federal Reserve that's seemingly losing control. Silver prices have moved up recently, but they've also been very deflated compared to prior years. Can we finally trust this rally?
I think so. You said I made some good calls, and I have. I'm very good at the top so far, and I hope to get the biggest top of all, which I believe lives ahead of us by a few years. But my bottom calls have not been that great. I mean, there's been such a long bottoming process. Right now, I'm still correct. I said the bottom was in December 2015. That's certainly true for gold, and it is still true for silver, barely. We almost double bottomed. But back to your question. If you go back to this original bull market, I mean, the one that we're in, gold started up in 2000, but silver really didn't start its bull move until September 2003. So there was about a 3-year lag. So you could kind of make that same argument right now that gold started a pretty good move up December 2015, where it was at 1050, I believe, and now we're at whatever it is. I haven't checked, 1380 or something like that. Whereas silver bottomed, I forget the exact number. I'm usually pretty good with numbers. 1388 on gold currently. And silver was, I forget, 14 handle, 1480, 50, I forget. But we're only slightly above that now. But this is typical of silver, to be really difficult to analyze and kind of lay in the weeds and disappoint and disappoint and disappoint. And all of a sudden it explodes.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, after it explodes, people are interested in the market. They're not interested in buying a dead dog. They're only interested in buying a dog that's running as fast as it can. So that's the analogy I'm going to give you right now. But I wouldn't give up on the silver market. I just charted it last night, and it looks like the update that I did for my members. I do video updates for our premium members. I told them about this breakout. I said I thought it's for real. I wanted to make sure it had legs, which it obviously has. It opened $20 up. On the New York Open, it's up 27 now. So this is probably it. I mean, I'm so gun shy, and people are easy to criticize, and that's fine,
Sure.
But I'm pretty certain I want to see one more day on close only. I'm sure we'll be above 1350, so that means we have a solid breakout. It looks like the powers that be in the algorithms are going to let it run, which means throwing that ball hard up in the air, and it's going to go, and it's going to continue to go. We might get $10 tomorrow. We might get a down day tomorrow. I don't know. But I think it's going to run. Obviously, it has run. So I think the run will continue another day or two. And then it'll lose momentum. And then the shorts will probably come in and push it back down. But they're not, in my view, going to be able to push it below 1350. So we're basically on our way. Gold is, as I've said for months, going to lead the way for silver this time, just
Sure.
like it did at the initiation of this bull market. 3 years, there was a lot of parallels to that in this. And I wouldn't, again, I'm repeating, but I wouldn't give up on the silver market. If you're sitting on silver, and a lot of people out there that are silver only people.
Yes.
I'm not.
Hmm.
You know, you might think that I would be. I'm not. I've got platinum, I've got palladium, I've got gold and silver. And, my palladium move was excellent on the
Yeah.
way in,
Sure.
but a little early on the way out. But nonetheless, you never go broke taking a profit. So back to you.
This segues also into my second question. You mentioned how difficult it is to analyze the silver market. And one of the metrics that I've been looking at, the gold silver ratio, roughly around 90 to 1. And I mean, this just seems just absolutely insane. In several of your conferences, you've mentioned that historically, at one point, the gold silver ratio was 12 to 1. I think the
Right.
average kind of bumped up to the natural ratio bumped up to 16 to 1, 90 to 1. I don't know. It's a phenomenal number. I think it's very close to all-time historical highs. Does this too also imply an imminent rise in the silver market value?
It does. It does based on past performance, but then you have to say, well, past performance does guarantee future results, and it doesn't. But
Sure.
it's usually always on a spike, and it's been close to 100 a few times before, and we're pretty close. 92, I think, is what I saw on my chart last night when I,
Yeah.
did my update for my members. So I think that's it. It started down already. Silver's not doing quite well. It's neck and neck with gold right now. They're even though silver's only up a measly 31 cents on a percentage
Yeah.
basis, they're both up 2%. I mean, gold up 27 catches your attention. A $27 bill in your pocket, buy you a few Starbucks, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
31 cents in your pocket isn't going to do much at Starbucks. But the point is they're both up 2%. And this is what I like to see for confirmation. I actually like to see silver outperform gold like at a 2 to 1 or 3 to 1 basis percentage wise.
Sure.
So for an example, with gold up 2%, I'd love to see silver up like 5. That would give me a lot of confidence that silver's going to rally. But as I said before, it can sit there and disappoint, but it's not going to stay down in the weeds forever. And I believe once this bull market really gets some momentum, which is probably by the end of this year, we'll start to see silver outperform gold. So see that ratio go from 92 down to 80, down to 70, and who knows where it's going to end up. And I wouldn't give up on this, and I'm not predicting this. I'm just saying it's possible that silver could get back to the classic ratio, 16 to 1. It could even get to the natural ratio, which currently is about 9 or 10 to 1. I'm not, again, predicting that. What I do want to suggest to you, and I'm going to ask you a question. What would you think about silver and gold, the natural ratio at the time being 12 to 1, and it was that way for thousands of years, 13th, 14th, 15th, 16th centuries, and they both had the same function, money. Now that silver has some monetary qualities, it's legally money still,
Sure.
but it also has cell phone usage, laptop usage, flat screen usage. Every high tech application that's electrical or electronic needs silver. Usually, when you have something that's has multiple uses, it carries more value instead of less value. But now, since silver's demonetized, it has all these other applications. It's basically has much less value than gold as priced in today's market. Does that make sense to you?
No, I mean, absolutely not. But it sort of it goes to a point that you've also made, which silver is just simply not correlated with what we would assume as normal supply demand
Yeah.
dynamics. Could you talk a little bit about that? I mean, will there ever be a time when these normal supply demand dynamics will impose itself on silver, or are we just
I Yeah, very good question. I'm going to also come back to what I asked you. I mean, first of all, I've thought about this, the question I asked you, I've asked myself many times. And silver, for the most part, is demonetized, especially with the alternative cryptocurrency market. I think a lot of, usually a lot of silver investors are young, aggressive. They're not that sophisticated, although they're smart,
Yes.
sophisticated in the sense of having investment savvy. I mean, they don't know when they're overloading. They don't know that they shouldn't use margin. I mean, there's a lot of stuff you kind of have to learn by doing it. And I'm looking myself in the mirror, believe me, because I made almost every mistake you can make. And it took me a while to learn the lesson 2, 3, 4 times before I actually learned it, but I have. Anyway, the point coming back to you, when I asked you that question, I think the reason you see gold now performing right now, or let me restate that. When you saw gold and silver track the national ratio for thousands of years, and they both functions as money, what that really says in a way is there's an infinite demand for money. There's always someone that wants more. I mean, a few people are satisfied with what they have, but there's always an increasing population. And fortunately or unfortunately, depending on your perspective, you've got to earn money in almost everywhere on the planet to be able to live, pay rent and buy, food and all this stuff. So it's basically the infinite demand on money. And if you consider gold as money and silver as money at that time,
Yeah.
then you got this infinite demand. Whereas if you go, and I'm going to answer your question, believe it or not, and all you have is a industrial demand and money's kind of off to the side or maybe 10% of that market rather than 100% of that market, you don't have an infinite demand. You have a demand that's increasing, but a demand that so far has been met in most instances. We did have a silver shortage, or I should say a retail silver shortage in the 2008 crisis, where we got like a 30% premium on retail silver products like 1 ounce rounds, government minted silver coins like the eagle or the maple, small silver bars like the 1 ounce wafers, the 10 ounce bars, and the 100 ounce bars. But the silver market, the commercial bars actually stayed at the paper price. And a lot of people thought there was an arbitrage there, and I did too. In fact, I took advantage of it. A lot of people thought that the silver price would jump up that 30%. And it could have if there was a true silver shortage. There was a silver retail shortage, not a silver shortage. So to answer your question, yes, absolutely there could be, and I believe absolutely there will be a day when there is a shift between the paper paradigm and settlement in paper only, sure, and a settlement silver only. And when it's a settlement in silver only and there's not enough silver to meet the settlement, then there will be an increase in price that perhaps people will not believe at this point in time. So I think that day is ahead of us. I don't think it's imminent. I think it will take some time. If you want to pin me down, and I hate playing the when game because I love to be right and I don't want to mislead anyone.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I do think it's probably 2 or 3 years away. I think they're going to see, excuse me, a gradual return. Let me get a drink, sorry.
No worries.
I think you're going to see a gradual return in the silver market. Gold's going to lead the way, as I've said many times. And reluctant investors will come back into silver. But it's such a small market, it doesn't take many of them coming back. Once silver starts to outperform, then the momentum players will come in and go, oh my goodness, hey, I'm going to trade gold for silver. I'm going to do these other things. So I'm still quite bullish on it longer term. So there will be a day, and it could be in gold market. It could be where there's a failure to deliver on the gold side. And of course, that would instantly spark almost anybody that's in the metals to say, well, if it happened in gold, it's going to happen, or it could happen in silver. We saw it come close in palladium twice already.
Yeah.
It actually did take place in the last move that palladium made up to over $1,000, which was some time ago. I'll give you a year, but I can't recall the exact year. And we had it happen here pretty close. We're pushing up in the $1,400 level in the palladium market. And these things are very, very small markets. I mean, you think, silver is a small market, but platinum and palladium are ridiculously small.
Yeah.
So, why they're even on the exchange, I honestly don't know. But, I don't run the CME. I just criticize it.
Speaking of criticism, the Trump administration has been highly critical of the Federal Reserve, urging them to modulate the benchmark interest rate. And the Federal Reserve, I'm not going to defend central bankers, but they're sort of in an awkward situation because part of the reason why a big reason why they feel that they must start pulling monetary levers is because Trump's foreign policy has been very aggressive, particularly with the U.S.-China trade war. I was curious, is the Fed at risk right now of just pulling too many levers from just years and years of quantitative easing, and will that could that introduce entropy into the financial system?
Yes, and I think I'd answer it slightly different. I think the metaphor I would use would be like using an emergency brake where you have a handbrake, like a, excuse me, you have like a handbrake on a Volkswagen. I drive a Volkswagen and also drive a Dodge, but regardless, who cares what I drive? But I just want to be specific on a pull handle, and you pull that lever and it doesn't work. I think that's a really good metaphor because right now this lowering of interest rates, it may adjust the yield curve, and it may make the yield curve look better and all that stuff, but that's window dressing. That's just for show only. I think they're basically, we've overset it and it's been too long. We've been wrong on time and all that. I admit all of that stuff. Like, go right in the camera and say it. But it's not over till it's over. And right now they're running scared, and they're running out of things they can do. Yeah, they could pull those levers, but I don't think they're going to have any effect. Oh, yeah, it'll have some effect. As I said, you probably could make the yield curve come into normalcy, but it's not going to really help the economy in a significant way. Will it help the bond traders? Yes. Will it make the bond traders money? Yes. Will it quell the markets and calm them for a while longer? Yes. But will it have a long-lasting substantive effect? Will we actually get out of this mess that we're in? Absolutely, completely, 100% no. And this is the problem that they really face, the big problem, the gorilla in the room, so to speak. And this is something that cannot be avoided and cannot be stalled off much longer. And that's why you're probably seeing gold move now. I've been wrong on timing. I probably over-apologize for that. We saw this kind of a move in 2016, and I honestly thought that was it. We're seeing it today. I'm pretty certain that this is it. Doesn't mean this is it like from here on, tomorrow, if you're not in gold, you're going to miss out. Now, if gold's going to go to 5,000, whether you get in today or Friday or Monday or next week or January of 2020, really doesn't matter too much, although it could be a pretty good move between now and January. The point being is that if you get at 1,300, 1,400, 1,500, or 1,600, if we're going to 5,000, it really doesn't make a huge difference in your overall gains because they're going to be so substantial relative to where gold's been the last 6 years, which has been basing.
One of the interesting dynamics is that gold-friendly nations, India and China, they have retaliatory tariffs against the U.S. And it's interesting because it segues into one of your most profound points, I believe, that you made last year in the Cambridge House International Conference. You mentioned that 0.02% of the world's wealth is held in silver. And he also pointed out that if every American just bought a few silver rounds, that we would, just as the United States, we as Americans would corner the silver market every year. And I'm just, that statistic just blew my mind. And I'm just wondering, because we have, the media focuses right now on the poor relations with China, but India is also, that's a major economic trading partner that's not happy with us. So, and they're imposing retaliatory tariffs. Does this eventually lead to higher demand for gold and silver, if not for just the fact that demand for the US dollar surely must be declining?
It does. You'll see higher demand because of the deterioration of the currency. And you will see that the idea of what I proposed earlier about there's an infinite demand for money. So if silver was money, even if it was a bimetallic standard where the central banks held silver as a monetary asset, you can imagine what the price of silver would be. So since it's demonetized and second class citizen, the gold, so to speak,
Sure.
on a monetary basis, there isn't that component at a large level. Yet, as I said, 5% of the world's population each buying, 2 ounces of silver would corner basically the mine supply on an annual basis. So that 0.2%, which is an accurate number, to drop, jumps to 0.04%. I mean, it doubles. That would probably take the silver price to, who knows, 40, $50 easily. So gold, again, is going to have to lead, and it is. And then silver will be more affordable. So there's a couple of things that happen. One is more people wake up to what's happening. And part of it will be as the dollar actually will strengthen initially, it will start to lose favor because of inflation. And I think that's going to start in the latter half of this year due to the food prices that will be moving up to, it's because of inflation, but it's also due to, crop failures and that type of thing, and this flooding that took place through the Mississippi valleys. But Americans will be cognizant of that. So they'll be looking for alternatives. Once the trust is lost, which is what the Federal Reserve's biggest worry is, that there's loss of faith in the dollar. Chinese have lost faith in the dollar. Russians have lost faith in the dollar. The BRICS have lost faith in the dollar. They can't really off 100% of it because that would cause a panic, and they know it, and they don't want to lose what their dollars are worth right now. They're trying to get the most, bang for the buck, excuse the expression, as they can and exit slowly. But they're lightening up their dollar load and moving more and more into gold, as everyone knows. The only ones that aren't doing that are, some of our trading partners, and of course, Americans at large, or the world at large. Americans are actually pretty strong on the silver market, and the silver market's, as I said, so small. So there will be a day where gold moves to some price. I don't know what it is, 2,221. And at that price, the latecomer, it won't be that late, but the people waking up to the purpose of the metals will say, oh my goodness, I don't have $2,000 saved, but I got $200 saved. I can't buy an ounce of gold, but you know what I can do? I can go buy 5 ounces of silver at $40 an ounce, whatever the price is at that time.
Sure.
And this will spill over in the consciousness of the world, I think, this time. Last time it was a U.S. phenomena where, yes, Hunt was cornering the silver market and all that. Yeah, we get it. It was a one-day event. Yes, I admit that.
Yeah.
This time, I think it won't be a one-day event. I think it'll be a move that will be well noted on the internet, where there will be these chat rooms and videos like yours. You'll be interviewing somebody from Europe saying that they went to a coin shop and they brought their gold in to swap it for silver, and there was no silver available. Or they went to a coin shop to buy silver, and the value-added tax is normally 17%, and the guy had a 17% markup on top of that. So you had to pay like 35% to take it out of the shop, and he decided that was too high a premium and wouldn't do it, or that type of thing. What people don't understand is silver is actually hard to obtain as an investment in a lot of the world. There's a value-added tax in most of Europe that's rather prohibitive. So if you're going to buy metals and there's like zero VAT or a very small VAT on gold, and there's a huge one on silver, most people will buy gold because they feel they're being cheated by having to pay this huge premium for silver added by the state. Mm-hmm. Even in South America, where it's purported you can buy silver quite easily, even at the banks, you cannot. And I know that from personal experience because it took a whole day to determine for myself whether or not that's true. Now, I can only speak with authority in Argentina because that's where I tried it with backup. In other words, I have witnesses that witnessed what I did at the banking window
Sure.
with a little postcard saying you could buy gold or silver here, and you really couldn't. Oh, well, that's only one bank. So I went to another bank. So I did it 3 times. Three doesn't make a huge federal case, but it was interesting that I couldn't get silver over the counter. I could. At one of the banks, they finally could find me some gold, but that was it. So probably making a bigger deal out of this and going too long on this rabbit trail. But the point is, if silver was as easy to obtain and didn't have the restrictions that gold has on a worldwide basis, you'd see a lot more silver investing taking place. This is one of those unknown facts that very few ever even talk about. So I thought I'd bring it out on your show. But even with that, let's say those hurdles to overcome, you will see people willing to pay that because if gold's, make up another number, 5,000, and silver is only 100.
Sure.
It's still like, I'll pay up 30%. I need something outside of this paper promise that I don't trust anymore. That's when it breaks down. When the breakdown of trust happens in the euro, in the dollar, in the currency system, we have this currency crisis taking place, then you're going to see a run to anything that has value. I mean, like very corny say again and again, a jar of peanut butter. But that's true. A jar of peanut butter that's sealed, you can put on your shelf and trade it for something else. Well, that's not a bad thing to buy, but if you have enough savings, you rather put in something that's been money forever, and that's silver. Even though it's been demonetized by the authorities, doesn't mean it's been demonetized by the mindset of the population at large. And that's their greatest fear, is people start buying silver for a monetary asset, which is where the margin is.
Yeah.
The silver market price does not move on the industrial demand. It moves at the margin, which means it moves on monetary demand. And when that monetary demand goes from where it's at now, which is practically zero, to that 0.02% to 0.06%, and it triples from where it is now, look out. And that's why silver will still outperform gold. It's too small a market, and it's too cheap relative to gold. It's too cheap relative to everything. I mean, think about what it takes to get a silver, look at that kilo of silver right there, 999 pure. I mean, that's about the size of a cell phone. And even today at $15, so what's 15 times 30? 450 bucks. Is that right? I think that's right. I think I did the math. Still, even though that's very, very cheap, it's actually as valuable as my cell phone, right? I mean, it's a little thicker, but you get the idea.
Sure.
So they say silver's too bulky. Well, relative to gold, it's too bulky. But I defy you, unless you're an art collector or a stamp collector or a rare coin collector, to show me anything you can pick up off your desk that's that little volume that's worth almost $500.
Yeah, absolutely. I wanted to ask you, because your book, Get the Skinny on Silver Investing, was essentially the first modern book on silver investments. Before that, it was most of the publications were geared toward, I believe, the baby boomer generation. And so your book introduced silver to a new generation of investors. Right now, of course, there's the cryptocurrency craze, the Bitcoin, the blockchain. I was wondering, I want to get your thoughts on whether silver is, or precious metals in general, physical precious metals, are still relevant in this cryptocurrency era, so to speak.
I think they are. I mean, a lot of the crypto proponents are talking about anonymity and, decentralized, and you have a monetary transaction that can take place between two parties, peer-to-peer, without any banking interference, no central authority, and all that. Really, I think that, silver or gold coin is actually much more anonymous because not in all cases, not the early adopters, but anyone that's come onto the cryptocurrency world in the last few years has had to go to some type of a portal that has to KYC, know your customer, and get certain information to verify that you are you. And now that they know you are you and they can verify that, then you go in and you buy your Ether or your Bitcoin or your Litecoin or whatever you're going to buy. Yeah. And that's recorded.
Sure.
So it's not that anonymous whatsoever. Whereas, the silver bar I showed a second ago, I mean, it's roughly 450, not quite $500. And I don't know what's out there for 500. Well, let's say I want to buy a used iPhone i10 for 500. And go to that guy and say, look, I'll give you this for that iPhone. And, I mean, that's about as anonymous as you could get. Yes, it's cumbersome in some ways and all that, but you have to look at the other side of the equation. You're dependent on the electrical grid or the internet for a Bitcoin or a crypto transaction, and not that I'm predicting an EMP or not that there's going to be a solar flare that takes out, some portion of the electrical grid, but it has happened. It could happen. And there's nothing more, I hate to use the word, I'm making laugh at my own joke, but old school.
Yeah.
Gold or silver coins. I mean, that's what the Constitution says. The Congress had the right or the obligation to coin money. And that's how they thought of it in those days. And some, old school still think that coins of value, gold and silver, are still money, and they are. But no, I think there's a place for both. But as far as, making a transaction, I think a blend is what will happen.
Sure.
And I'm pretty outspoken on reinstituting silver in the monetary sphere through a cryptocurrency called LODE. I'm an ambassador for them. If you're more interested, the URL is going to sound weird, but it's very accurate. It's AG, which is the periodic table symbol for silver. So it's ag.lode, L-O-D-E .O-N-E. So ag.lode.one. It's a well laid out website. Go through all the FAQs because everyone's going to read half the FAQs and then they're going to say, oh, but what about this? But it's in the FAQs. And it's a way to put silver back into the monetary system in two ways, physically and electronically. And, big caution. I mean, I want to get in your face about this, not you personally, but your viewers' face, because as old and gruff as I am, I still have feelings like anybody else. And,
Sure.
Being accused of, ruining someone's life because they bought silver because they heard me speak one time, well, that's more on them than on me because I didn't tell them to do that. What I told them in the 10 rules of silver investing is 10% is enough. So I say on this LODE program, 10% or less is enough. And if you don't like it, don't do it. But if you're going to do it, use your head about it. You don't want to put in your life savings in silver in this thing. What you want to do is either wait and see how well it's established, how well the market recognizes it, and or take a portion that you're willing to risk or forfeit to help the project along. That's what I did. I am an early adopter. I did fund it with silver, but believe me, the amount of silver I put in relative to my silver holdings is rather minimum. It's enough to where if it works, my silver return, because you get paid in silver as being one of the founder or one of the contributors, I should say. So I'm not a founder. I'm just a contributor, as you could be if you chose to do it. So you get a return in silver once this thing starts, full scale. So I put in enough to make me happy, but not so much it's going to ruin my life by a long shot. So
Yeah.
I just want to make that clear because, I don't get to talk to everybody directly. I mean, people that make a decision based on a limited amount of information usually live to regret it.
Sure.
That's all I can say.
Well, I think I speak for many investors in the space. We certainly appreciate your transparency. But as I mentioned at the top, you're the founder of themorganreport.com, and it's very obvious you've had many successful calls. And I was wondering, because right now there's so much activity in the precious metals mining space. Is this a time, an ideal time to also think about the miners?
Oh, absolutely. And we've covered all the miners. I mean, people say, well, a lot of the critics I get the most have never paid me a dime and never will pay me a dime. They hear the general information basically on the precious metals. They don't know that we had, a molybdenum stock from a friend of mine here in town that was 35 cents and went to $12. They never hear that story. They don't hear that we had Western Copper at, 50 cents and went to about $40, bought out by Glamis and Goldcorp. They don't hear that story.
Yeah.
So what I do is mostly on the equity side. Yes, I do futures, I do options. I tell all my people, don't bother. I do it. You can watch me do it. And you can use ETFs or appropriate stock if you want. And yes, we look at the precious metals, but also look at a lot of other things. We're the first on the rare earth elements. Go pull up a chart of Linus Corporation right now and see what that's done. I had Kirkland Lake as our best pick all year on the mid-tier section. Go look at Kirkland Lake and see what kind of money was made. So, sit there, well, silver hasn't done anything. Well, no, silver hasn't done anything. But the Morgan report sure as hell has. So, but they're easy to criticize something they never looked at and something they'll never pay me for. And it's easy to criticize something, especially if you know nothing about it. And that's called ignorance. Sorry, I'm on a bit of a rant, but let me I love the free speech opportunity.
For sure.
But, if you're interested in the overall general market trends and interviews like this, if I'm having a good day or a bad hair day, you can take your pick. You can always turn the video off. Go to themorganreport.com, give me a first name and verify it's you. Or the email's valid. I don't even care if it's you. You can be anonymous. Just give me an email that works, verify it works, and you'll get on our free list. And you'll get all the webinars that I do, all the interviews that I do that are available to the public. You will get some offers from time to time. If you like them, great. If you don't, great. We had a guy that he does the rare coin thing somewhat. I met him. I liked him. He doesn't push the rare coin thing very hard. And he was actually selling silver at a loss to get the leads off of my list. And, people still complained about that. I don't know what makes these people happy sometimes. But anyway, that's life. So,
yeah, for sure.
I'm just very happy. We just had a cobalt pick that just got bought out or in the process of, and be careful here, in the process of being bought out at a 6% premium. So, we're still making money at the moment. Is every pick doing fabulously well? No. My favorite silver stock, Junior, doubled last year. It's fallen back some. Got mixed into some bad press, which is really invalid. I brought in the CEO of the company on a webinar basis, like we're doing, so that all of my members, my paid members, could hear it from the horse's mouth. And I learned something, because I never said I know everything. It was actually not pertinent to this company whatsoever at all. But the way these two articles read, it was like it named this company as being detrimental to it. And that was absolutely false information, and the CEO proved it to us all. So, that's the kind of lengths that we go to here. We really do care. I say, let my passion create your wealth. It's not made up phony, I want your money kind of a thing. It's because I really do care. I want everybody to do well. But I also say, sign off every letter, wishing you health above wealth, wisdom beyond knowledge. Why the heck would I say that? Because I know from my own experience, my own life experience, my own family, if you don't have your health, you really don't have anything. It doesn't matter how much money you've got, So you got to be wise about your finances. It's important. Money is important, especially in the modern era. Mm-hmm. But there's other things that are equally or perhaps even more important. So I strive to teach, not so much in the Morgan Report, but in my example of how I live my life, to live in a balanced manner. Right. I never got really too high when silver was the best thing you could do. Believe me, I had a lot of pats on the backs and an entourage that followed me around more or less, and I never let it get to my head. And and that's the truth. Yeah. And when it got really low, believe me, I had my low moments, definitely, but I never tried to let myself get too low, because all markets go up and down. Silver is probably the exceptional one, because it could get very high and very low.
Yeah.
So unless you're pretty stable, you can let it get to you. Not that as I said, it didn't let it get to me occasionally. So I probably overtalked it again, but I really appreciate your time in the interview. And it was a different interview. I really think that if you want to look at it and boil it down to one thing, well, how would you summarize this whole thing? It's, look, silver is so damned important to the human race that the powers that be saw way back in the 18th 1800s that it was really necessary to take silver out of the monetary equation. I mean, if you really study the silver market like I have, it was imperative to the controllers to go to a gold only standard and take silver out of the people's pockets, which ruined, it heavily influenced what happened in the Western states in the United States because they demonetized silver. And of course, that's what the William Jennings Bryan Cross of Gold speech is all about. And it ruined the Pittman Act, ruined the Chinese economy because they were the last to go off the silver standard during the Great Depression, which they were doing quite well with the silver standard until the Pittman Act was enacted in the United States. There's a lot to the silver story as far as being a very manipulative situation for the power elite controlling others' lives, which of course I abhor. I'm for freedom. I'm for freedom if you're on the left. I'm for freedom if you're on the right. I'm for the freedom if you've no stripe whatsoever. I don't care. Without freedom, we really don't have a lot. And freedom of speech is freedom of speech. Look, if you can't say what you want, look, there's never going to be a place as an adult where you're going to be free from being offended if you easily or even have thick skin at some time in your life, maybe on a daily basis, who knows? And it's just part of living. To think that we could get ourselves in a cocoon and get in a safe space and control everybody to not say something that offends us, are you out of your mind? These are ridiculous ideas, and we have some real problems out there. I mean, we have real problems, and to sit here and focus on politically correct speech, but yet we're all succumbing to it, myself included. I mean, I know that sometimes when I'm doing an interview like this, I'll double think in the back of my head before I open my mouth about, well, if I say that, is it going to be taken wrong, or is it going to offend somebody, or is it going to they're going to see me as racist, or it's going to be playing the white male card, or all this nonsense that's out there.
Yeah.
We really have to accept everybody. I mean, America used to be so great because it was a melting pot for everybody.
Sure.
It didn't matter what your race was, what your creed was, what your religion was, what your beliefs was, or what you said, because you're free to say whatever the hell you wanted to say. You know, and if you didn't like it, you turned the channel, you moved off, you didn't become friends with that person, you never went to that meeting again or whatever. Because you do have control over some of it yourself. Someone says something you don't like or does a video you don't like, don't watch it.
Yeah.
But don't ban it. You can't ban it.
Sure.
That's not freedom. That's fascism.
Absolutely.
And this is the way we've gone. You know, I mean, the late, great Aaron Russo, From Freedom to Fascism. I mean, I really, you know, and I know I'm ranting, and thanks for giving me the floor, but
Absolutely.
in my youth, I never, ever expected to see the point we're at now where you couldn't speak your mind in America. You know, that's what made it great. It's, you know, Trump, think of him whatever you want. I don't care. It's your prerogative to think of him whatever you like.
Sure.
But one of the founding principles that makes America great is the right to free speech. And we lose that, you know, that's freedom. We're losing our freedom. And that is priceless. There's no amount of gold and no amount of silver that's going to buy back your freedom. I want you to think about that.
Yeah, that is a profound topic. Wow, this has been a tremendous discussion, and I wish we could dive more into these topics, but unfortunately, we're out of time. But before we go, could you share with us, are there any other resources that investors can go to learn more about your work?
Yeah, I have a Twitter feed at SilverGuru22. I have a YouTube. It's called The Morgan Report. I have a very small Facebook presence. I don't even know how to do it. My folks over in the Philippines handle that for me. Okay. YouTube, Facebook, or Twitter. Oh, LinkedIn. If you're a business person, you're on LinkedIn. I'm pretty good presence on LinkedIn, and I do a little bit more on the investment side on LinkedIn because there are investors on that website. So those three are other places you could go. But the easiest thing to do is either get on the podcast and listen, because these interviews go on both audio and video, or get on the mailing list and we'll send them to you directly.
Awesome. Mr. Morgan, thank you so much for being with us at Smart Money Results.
Thanks so much for having me. I enjoyed it very much.
Thanks.